Good morning. Welcome to Launch Fishers. My name is Rachel Drake. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications and Events here at Launch Fishers. Out of a show of hands, how many people, this is your first time to Launch Fishers? Fantastic. Well, welcome. Really excited to have you guys here. For those who are not familiar with what we do here at Launch Fishers, we are a co-working space where entrepreneurs and startups and small businesses can grow their companies, grow their businesses, to network and to ultimately achieve success. And so this event actually came about through one of our members, a friend of mine, Nicole Clark, coming to us and saying, hey, I'd love to do an event on. And something that we love to do at Launch Fishers is support our members' ideas. So this was something that came about through a lot of conversation, and we're really excited to have you all here. Just some quick housekeeping. This is a conversation, so please understand that there's going to be opportunities for questions. There's just going to be kind of a casual atmosphere to this. So please feel free to be as comfortable as possible. Please feel free to get up and get more coffee and donuts. Use the restroom at any point if you need to. It's right up here, up this ramp here, right out the door. And then just so everyone is aware, we are recording this now. What that means is there's a camera right underneath this screen. None of your faces are being captured. It's just our panelists. So this is really great content, a really wonderful conversation, hopefully, that we're going to be able to look back on and share with others. Since this is talking about mental health and behavioral health, that can be a little bit triggering for some people. So if there is a time when you're asking a question and you do not want your question recorded, I'll come around with the microphone. The recording only captures what goes into a microphone. If you don't want your question recorded, perfectly fine. Just deny the microphone. And then when we go to edit this, your question and the answer that comes from that will be edited out. So just so everyone is aware, it protects everybody, just to make sure everyone is comfortable. But if you're cool with it, then you'll say your question into the microphone and it'll go into the recording. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce Nicole Clark with String, and she's going to bring about a wonderful conversation with these amazing panelists. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel, and thanks to Launch Fishers again for hosting this, and thank you all for taking time out of your Wednesday morning to be here with us. Yes, my name is Nicole Clark, and I'll let everybody kind of introduce themselves as we talk later, but we are split up on the stage with kind of our founders on this side and our support team over here. So we have Amanda, Neil, Ashley, JJ, and Ray with us today. And so a little bit about my background. So last July, I was having lunch with my sister-in-law, and she was telling us about the Adderall shortage and all this stuff about how she had ADHD. And right there in that moment, my brain exploded because I did not know that ADHD could look like that. She went to a very prestigious school. She taught herself how to code, one of the smartest humans I've ever interacted with. I'm like, how can you have ADHD? Because for me, when I thought about ADHD, I remember in grade school, one girl I went, who was in my class, and she was like a literal ping pong ball, like just pure chaos. I'm like, that's ADHD. Like, how can it present like this? And so then that started me on a journey of researching myself, of what does ADHD look like. Found out some of my own mentors in my life had ADHD themselves. They gave me this book, Self-Care for People with ADHD, and truly incredible. And then went myself to get diagnosed, and last October I was diagnosed, and so here I am a year later sharing this conversation, and I'm really excited about just all the folks up here and the chat we're going to get into this morning. And also, it's great that we're doing this in October, because October is ADHD Awareness Month. And so I think this was news to all of us up here, maybe all you guys in the room. We did this very intentionally, so planned out perfect. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to read in this book. So on the table in front of you, there's a couple of things. One is the big sheet, and that has some terminologies and stuff that we're going to be talking about up here today. And then the other one is Everyday ADHD Bingo. We're not playing real bingo today, but that is a kind of a symptom card of a lot of different things that ADHD folks deal with all the time. But like I said, when my mentor gave me this book for ADHD, early on page 14, there is a chapter, a page and a half, called Allow Yourself to Demask. And at this time, I had never heard of masking, had no idea what that was. And then I read this, and immediately the emotions started coming. But so it says, ADHD masking is when someone with ADHD presents in a way that makes them seem like they are not living with the disorder. This occurs in roughly a third of people with ADHD and disproportionately in women. Masking involves conscious and unconscious methods of camouflaging symptoms by mimicking behaviors of neurotypical people. People mask because it helps them blend into society and more seamlessly and bypass the stigma and judgment of their diagnosis. And it was like, oh my God, like that is me to a T. And so it's been a whole journey. So I'm excited if there's some of you in the audience who are also diagnosed, if you think that you are, or if someone in your life is, we're gonna get into all that this morning. So I'm gonna turn it over to Ashley to kind of give us a level set of what ADHD is and what it looks like.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you for having us. Again, my name is Ashley Tislow. My sister, we're twins, just to clear the room, just so you know. We're both from Lafayette. We have a business together called Check-In Wellness. I had been a nurse for 15 years. I worked in oncology for that long, and then just recently became a psychiatric nurse practitioner, just passed boards like 3 weeks ago. So it's still new, but I've learned so much. Thank you. So much on this journey. And I'll tell you, it was during my clinicals with my preceptor, learning about ADHD, mental health, that I realized, maybe that's what I have going on. These moms would come in and just, be like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my phone all the time. I feel overwhelmed. Like simple tasks of doing laundry just feel so overwhelming and just stressful. And just learning about it more, I realized, I think I have that too. And she told me, she's like, you know what, Ashley, you actually do have it. I'm not gonna formally diagnose you, but I would just sit there, I guess, and just be like this and just not even realize it. So anyways, so I learned a lot during this journey of being in school and mental health. And I was able to share that with my family, what I've learned. And just to realize that ADHD is something that you're actually born with. Your brain, the pathways, all of that is something that you're born with, and it's not something that you can help. So if you're diagnosed properly, you'll understand that it's not something that you can help. Or if you know somebody that has it, I think there's kind of a stigma that comes along with it. Typically, it's people that, sometimes run late, or they talk fast like me, or things like chewing. I don't know if you're sitting next to somebody and they're eating chips and they start chewing, you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot handle this. That's actually a sign of it. So who knew? What else? Just feeling sluggish, overwhelmed, or I'd be upstairs studying and the sound of the TV, if I could hear it, I could not study. I just couldn't. So there's things you can do within your control anyways to manage ADHD. I feel like I'm rambling. The one thing I wanted to clear up is that ADHD is the diagnosis now. There was, I think we've all heard of ADD, right? But ADHD is the clear diagnosis now, and it's just divided to whether it's predominantly inattentive or predominantly hyperactive impulsive. So I think it's actually been like that since the 90s, but I'll tell you, during clinicals, it was ADD was still used, but this is the big book, okay? This is called the DSM-5, and this is what clinicians use to diagnose mental health disorders. So in a nutshell, I've kind of put in here things to look out for if you have, I'll start with the inattention, and it's 6 of these symptoms for 6 months is the inattention part. So lack of attention to detail, difficulty with sustaining attention in tasks, and often you don't seem to listen when you're spoken to. You don't follow through on instructions or tasks. You have difficulty organizing tasks. You dislike tasks that take a lot of your time and mental effort, and you often lose things, like our phones, keys. You're easily distracted and forgetful. So that is the inattention side of things. And you know what? I got it all in this book. You're the first one to ask. So, and then the hyperactive impulsivity, and the reason why it's diagnosed so late for adults is because in kids, it's like obvious, because they're, like Nicole said, they're bouncing off the walls. They're in school, the teachers kind of hone in on it, right? But as adults, we have it in our heads. We feel restless in our heads. We have these racing thoughts and things that aren't always like physical that you can see. So sometimes it's just harder to diagnose. You don't realize that's what's going on. And if you have it as an adult, you probably did have it as a child. Well, you did and didn't always realize it. So signs of hyperactivity, impulsivity, again, 6 of these for at least 6 months. Fidgets, taps, hands or feet, leave seat in situations when you're supposed to stay seated, feels restless, unable to engage in leisure activities actively. You're often on the go, you're driven by a motor, talks excessively, you blurt out answers before questions are completed, you have difficulty waiting your turn, and interrupts, intrudes on others. That's it. And that one is hyperactivity, impulsivity. So you can be also combined. You can have both of those. So just to be aware of that. Also, ADHD is more common in males, but females with ADHD, they have higher rates of other disorders, such as autism, personality, and substance abuse disorders. So again, it's so important that if you have ADHD, to get properly diagnosed. And I think we'll talk about that later, how to get properly diagnosed, because it often intertwines with depression, anxiety, mood disorders, even bipolar disorder. So it's just, like, again, we'll talk about that later, how to get properly diagnosed. But if left untreated, it can make remembering details obviously very hard, controlling impulses very difficult. It often feels like you're swimming upstream against a really strong current, and you'll make progress, but it takes a lot of time and effort. And then one of my neighbors shared this story with me. It's also like someone without ADHD digging a hole with a shovel, but someone with ADHD, it's like digging a hole with a spoon. It just takes a lot more time, a lot more effort, and you can't help it. Like, it's literally the way your brain is wired. Adult ADHD often goes undetected, again, because it doesn't look like the hyperactivity in children. In adults, hyperactive symptoms are more subtle and have inner restlessness and wandering mind. And let's see, and research actually suggests that ADHD, they have a 70% higher chance of experiencing long-term employment. But ADHDers often find a role that complements their strengths. They often succeed in their careers. And there was a statistic that I shared last week, and I actually shared, I was actually looking last night, and 500% was the most recent research. You have 500% more likely to become an entrepreneur with ADHD than the average person, which is really interesting. So that's all I got for right now.
Awesome, thank you. Now I'm gonna turn it over to Amanda, and if you want to share a little bit about when you got diagnosed and then what ADHD has looked like in your life.
Hi, I'm Amanda. So let me just say how thankful I am that my sister went back to school to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. So I'm one of the ones that was diagnosed late in life, was actually within this past year, but I know I've had it my whole life. For instance, I just remember being in grade school and getting bad grades and just feeling so bad about myself. But it was because I wasn't able to pay attention in school, and I lived on flashcards. I would memorize those things so well, and that's how I basically got my wraparound and did well eventually, is because I learned how to do that. But yeah, school is really, really hard for me, and I just remember looking around being like, wow, like, it's so easy for everybody else. Like, what is wrong with me? Now I know what was wrong with me. And then fast forward to my life now. I have 3 kids, and I work, and life is very busy. And my sister going back to school and being in clinicals was like, hey, like, Amanda, like, nothing is wrong with you. Like, you have ADHD. And I'm like, no. And then she's like, well, I have this screening. Like, she has like this piece of paper with her. She's like, you meet all the criteria. And I was like, well, doesn't everybody? Like, isn't that normal? She's like, no. So, I literally just thought something was wrong with me. I had depression, anxiety, constantly worried, something's wrong with me, comparing myself to others. Come to find out, I have ADHD and it's actually a superpower, right? So I was able to use that into my advantage, and that has really helped. And now, so today I have a business with my sister. I work for our heating cooling business in West Lafayette, or in Lafayette, and now I find it the routine. I have to be on a routine. That is very, very important in my life. Summer was very difficult. We had 3 kids at home. It was really hard. So routine, I thrive on routine. Most people with ADHD do. And just keeping a to-do list. Like, I have to-do lists for to-do lists, but that's okay. I rewrite them almost every day, but that helps me keep organized. And I put everything on my calendar. And I recheck that calendar multiple times because I cannot forget, right? Because I used to be pretty forgetful. Now I know what to do to help myself. So yeah, there's other treatment options as well. Therapy, done that. Yeah, I don't feel so bad anymore knowing that I have that and it's okay. And there's medication and you can talk about it. And I like that there's not as much stigma around it today. And to know that a lot of entrepreneurs have it, it's very comforting too.
Awesome, thank you. And
Oh, one more thing I wanted to add is that, sorry, brain. um, so I went from being, I worked in restaurants to being a flight attendant and then to working into an office. And let's just say that environment was not great for me, but didn't realize it. Like, I literally just thought again, like, well, how is everyone else able to do this all day, every day? I'm like, I cannot do this. I did it for a long time, but it was not for me. That I kind of felt like I was in a box, you know. So becoming an entrepreneur has helped that a lot. And also working for my dad helped too, because I was able to share ideas and things, but quickly realized that that was not for me. Yeah, that's all I got.
awesome. And everything that you're talking about, you mentioned like the anxiety and depression that come with it and the comparing yourself to others, like, why is this so difficult for me? Like, I remember it was like early last summer when my co-founder and I were practicing for a pitch, and we had a mentor like coaching us through this stuff, and my co-founder is like, I'm not sure why like this is so much easier for me to grasp and stuff. And it was like, why is it? Like, and that just didn't stop playing over and over in my head. And then understanding, oh, it's ADHD. The stuff would come in my head and then go right back out. You have a brilliant idea that solves this thing you've been working on, but then it suddenly vanish, and having to deal with that. And then I don't have the stat, but about all the negative reinforcement kind of kids have as they grow up with ADHD, because their brain isn't working the way that they expect it to. And it's like, why aren't you doing X? Why aren't you like rising to this occasion and stuff? Another thing with ADHD is like, you need to take naps all the time. Man, my parents would always be like, oh, Nicole needs to take another nap again. And I felt like the laziest kid that ever existed. And then so finding that validation. So that's a big thing with ADHD, is when you realize that that thing exists and you aren't just lazy and you aren't a bad person and all this stuff. There's just your brain has other plans going on. So I want to turn the mic over to Neil. I met Neil at Rally this year. Through on my little bio, I decided to start putting ADHD or ADHD kind of out there in the forefront, and networking with people because of that. And so Neil's one of the people that I met, and on Neil's business card on there, he has purposely scatterbrained. So Neil, could you tell us a little more about when you got diagnosed and how that mantra has kind of impacted you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I believe I got diagnosed back in 2021, when we all had a lot of time to really reflect and kind of be by ourselves, or at least, be still. So I realized, got to the point where when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I did like a really big deep dive into what that meant and kind of how that kind of affected my life and the different aspects that kind of I related to the most. I was diagnosed specifically more with the inattentive type ADHD, which is definitely the calmer on the outside kind of version, rather than being super hyperactive, which is why it took so long to get diagnosed. But really, I didn't have a lot of like suspicions that I had ADHD up until then, but like I definitely felt the struggles with like motivation of getting things done or kind of starting projects and finishing projects and a lot of the stuff that comes with ADHD. But as I learned more about ADHD, it became apparent that there are ways to frame it and mitigate the detriments of having ADHD and kind of focus on the benefits that you can that you gain once you start to realize and practice, put plans into practice. And I guess more recently, I've also come to the awareness and identification of having level 1 autism, which is the connection that I made with Nicole, just being ADHD as well. So I guess to go over to the purposely scatterbrained part that's on my business cards. Basically, the idea was to came from a exercise kind of created and by a designer, Chris Do. I do a lot of visual design work, so I'm constantly following, the lead top, thinkers in that world. Chris Do is definitely one of them, but he goes into an exercise called like finding your shadow self and kind of figuring out what are the things that you are like you kind of find hold you back or that you really don't really like about, you're not like happy or you're not proud of, or you kind of like, these are the parts that are kind of more seen as negative. And then finding those things and kind of being like, I'm going to own it. It's going to be part of me. It is part of me. I'd rather not hide it and kind of put it out. I'd rather put it out there as something that can be my strength, like making your negatives your strength. So when I did a lot of looking into that, I found the strengths of having ADHD definitely in my life, as I've learned, has been outweighing the detriments from it, and learning that I found that I'm good at making different connections between different ideas, different concepts, learning stuff from one kind of profession or skill set and trying to apply it into other skill sets as well. So that's kind of the scatterbrain part of like being able to go, to all these different interests, which is definitely another thing I found with ADHD is like there's a lot of cool things to learn. I love learning all types of concepts, and if I can be purposeful in learning all the different things, then I can bring those different things together in new ways that not everybody can think about. So that's kind of where the purposely scatterbrained kind of idea came from. Really, it's been a part of like accepting that I have ADHD and or ADHD, and kind of focusing more on finding the motivation to get to extract the benefits and not focus on, oh, all these hard things are hard and I just can't do it because I'm not wired the same as a neurotypical person or anything like that. It's just like I got to do it different, and I got to embrace that. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo that completely. The more that you can understand it and embrace it, because your whole life, especially those who are diagnosed late in life, have felt so isolated the whole time, and again, constantly questioning, why do I feel so different? So like, that's what really excites me about awareness, because like a handful of years ago, it was so taboo to, be able to, especially as like an entrepreneur, to be like, I have ADHD or I have ADHD. And, but now it's like, I figured out why I am different. And like, one thing as a founder is you have to answer, why me? And I think having ADHD or ADHD is definitely a reason for why me. And again, think about the negatives and the positives. One kind of negative of ADHD, you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about like laundry and even taking a shower being such a hard thing to do, and it's because it's such, for neurotypical people, all that kind of stuff is autopilot. It's morning time. Everything goes on autopilot. All the like care that you go into, shower, all that's one thing. But for someone who's neurodivergent, all of that is individual tasks. I need to get out of bed. I need to have my clothes ready. I need to get in the shower. I need to shampoo my hair. I need to condition my hair. I need to do all this. Number of times I've gotten out of the shower and I've missed one of those steps is very common. But I think for ADHD people, that is also where innovation is born, because all those steps are so individualized, where sometimes for other people they're on autopilot, but we can see those things in between, like we live in the weeds. So, so Amanda, not just what sparks innovation, but what else drives neurodivergent folks to be entrepreneurial?
So I've always had like crazy ideas. Like my husband and I are like, oh, like he has ADHD too. He's had it. He's had it for a long time. But we're like, what kind of invention are we going to make? So it's kind of like a game. Like there's a problem, we try to solve it. But yeah, that's just something we've always done. But so just outside of the box thinking, I feel like sometimes my ideas are just really outside of the box and just really out there sometimes, but that's like a good thing. So we're like sitting in a group, I'm like, oh, what about this? What about that? What about this? And sometimes you can't really do that like at some workplaces, like maybe your boss or your employee, your fellow team members may not love that. So working as like a non-entrepreneur can be a little bit tough because it's just a little bit tougher. You might be criticized more, which is fine, but you don't feel as free thinking as you do for an entrepreneur because you're the ones taking the risk, which is exciting. Like I love that so much. My sister and I, started our business about 2 years ago, and the idea we can tell you more about that, but it was so out of the box thinking that we're actually a trailblazer in Indiana, but like without our ADHD, like I don't think the idea would have come about. So it's pretty exciting to not feel like as I did before, I kind of felt like I was in a box. So now I'm not. I feel free. That makes sense. To share ideas, to be myself, not be afraid, not hold back. And then props to my dad out there too. Well, another fellow ADHDer. He's an entrepreneur. But I saw from him too, like, all the things that he's able to do with all his ideas, and how that's done to us as his daughters. So it's pretty great, being an entrepreneur and being able to do, to share ideas and take those risks, I think is the best. So when I say when I feel like it's a superpower, like that's one of the reasons why.
Awesome, thank you. Neil, what does neurodivergent awareness look like in the business community?
I think one thing, I actually did a bit of a discussion with one of the neurodivergent communities that I've been kind of a part of. I'm on Discord. I game a lot as well. So I try to find these communities of like-minded people. I asked them kind of some ideas of like, if I was speaking to a lot of people that were looking to be entrepreneurs or just business people in general, what would they want to know? Or what would they want the business world to know? And one of the big things was just how our ADHD brains they're not broken, they're just different, and they work differently. It's just the wiring is, the wiring in our brain just has a different way to work, and it still works. We still go through our lives and are able to do it. Some tasks are way harder, and then other tasks are seem to come easy. Like I think one thing I've found is like I'll do like a day's worth of work in like 40 minutes or sometimes if I'm like just hyper focusing on it and just kind of get through it real quick, which is super beneficial because then I have extra time during the day to do other stuff. There are a lot of benefits that they wanted to kind of show, and one of the big ones was the lateral thinking, or thinking outside the box, and putting different ideas and concepts together to solve problems. There's like ADHDers have a high ability to just do that, and are really good problem solvers when it comes to things that are especially interesting and that they want to solve and kind of get excited about. So that's a huge benefit as an entrepreneur. You come up against your problems, you're able to solve it and kind of get through it, where people might get stuck on that, or they've done things a certain way for so long that they don't really think of any other way to do. And I know I've been in an office setting where I'm like, I get told the process that they've always done, and then I'm like, okay, what about this way? And they're like, nah, we do it this way. I'm like, okay, it's not, it hurts to do it when I see like other ways that might be a little more efficient or innovative. But I think that's kind of what I find to be really beneficial, is just kind of finding the different ways. And when people are accepting in the business world of, they might be doing something the same way, and that's because that's the way they do it. But if they're accepting of people that come up with new concepts and new ideas, I think that's really important, and it kind of helps validate and drive innovation in the industry. So yeah, some of the benefits are those innovative problem solving and unique perspectives. Every person has their like knowledge that they've been interested in learning, and everybody can apply that in their own unique way. So really, I guess this goes for ADHD and neurotypical people, just like accepting that people's insights might be different and that they can harness those to make things better. It's just good practice all around. Our ability to hyperfocus as ADHDers is getting things done quickly, faster than a lot of people might think. If I have a really, like what I see as a boring task that I know I have to get done, I will try to put headphones in, blast some music. It'll be like EDM or metal, or just something really fast and loud. And at least for me, that's what it works. And I'll just like plug away and get it done in an hour and a half or whatever. And probably won't remember having to do all that again. So that helps. Another important thing about the awareness was communication is a big thing. When you're communicating as an entrepreneur, when you're communicating as a employee with ADHD, it's good to have very clear communication. And at least for me and a lot of the people I talk to, the verbal communication has always been harder. If I get told to do a task and they say, you got to do this, 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 and it's all verbally like a list of things I got to do, I'm probably not going to remember all of that. And I'll like have to go back and be like, okay, what do we need to do next? You know, do all that. And it's always more beneficial when it's written down, and I can reference that and kind of have this idea to not have to go and ask a bunch more questions or say, oh yeah, I forgot what was next. There's also a big kind of, well, it's good to also recognize that people learn in different ways. Some people learn by doing. I know I do. Like, you can tell me the process, and until I actually do it a few times, it's going to be pretty hard for me to really understand what that process is. It's always good to, as an entrepreneur and as a business person, to understand the team that you work with and kind of get an idea of the strengths and weaknesses, I hate weaknesses, the strengths and the detriments that people have, so you can work around those and work with them, rather than just saying, you got to do this because that's your job, and, you know, got to be willing to make accommodations for people, which is really big. It's if I get, you know, tasked with something that I don't know how to do exactly, or I have trouble with, and then I'm expected to do it anyway, that makes it really hard. It makes me honestly not want to do it so much, which, you know, isn't good. But if you come together with neurodivergent people and kind of figure out the best way to help and work together, that's, you know, super appreciated in general. And then personally, as an entrepreneur, finding out and recognizing when I need help is like super big. Like, I think a lot of people feel like they need to just do it and not ask for help because it's going to bother other people, or it's, you know, it's something that I should know how to do. And really, it's that kind of thinking gets you stuck, and you lose motivation, you lose the train of thought that you're on, or whatever. If you ask for help, people, I've found, really actually like to help other people for the most part. And when you are kind of vulnerable in that kind of way, there's a bit of trust and a bit of understanding that's developed, which is super important. So knowing when you need help and being willing to ask that as an entrepreneur is super important, I think. So, yeah. Yeah, I think that's...
You said a lot of great stuff there. One of the things I liked is about how you learn differently, and it reminded me of, speaking of getting ADHD from our dad. I'm not part of the twins either. I have my own dad, but I remember being in high school and my dad trying to teach me how to drive a stick shift, and he's telling me all the things, and I'm like more or less zoning out, because I'm like, until I'm in the driver's seat and my hand is there, I'm not going to remember anything you say. But then when that happened and I sat down in the driver's seat and said, okay, now what do I do? He wasn't too happy about that. So that's another thing with ADHD too, though, when expectations aren't met, that frustration can happen a lot. So there's a temper that can come with ADHD. So that's just a little side note there. But another thing that both you guys touched on is that having space to be able to ask questions and having space to be able to give ideas. That is definitely bread and butter, how to make an ADHD person thrive in an environment. And Amanda, to your, oh yeah, you were saying that you and your husband do like quick little like idea bursts. My husband and I also like to do like 60-second solves. Like you have 60 seconds, like what's a quick thing? And that's something fun that I feel like businesses could instill too. Like, all right, guys, we have this huge problem, like 5 minutes. Everyone give me an answer in 5 minutes. Like, then you're like getting back to like kindergarten type stuff. And it's like kindergartners don't know the constraints that exist. And that's another thing with ADHD folks too, when we're like have all those like 1,000 different steps we're thinking through, we aren't like worried about some of the constraints that other people might be thinking about. So thank you. Oh, yeah.
I was going to add one thing on the expectations, which kind of sparked a thought, was like when expectations aren't met, I've always felt like it's disappointing, obviously, for the person that had the expectations, but even for, like more so for me, like I know those expectations and I didn't meet them, so I'm going to be hard on myself already. So I think finding the grace for yourself and for or in receiving grace from the other person is super important. Just kind of to go build off that.
Absolutely. I think some of that ADHD gets in there too with that. So definitely look up all the differences between all the different diagnoses too. And yeah, you are exactly right. Want to turn attention over to our support side a little bit, and just want to say how truly phenomenal these support folks are, because I want to wish JJ a happy birthday today. And yes.
29.
And then Ray got married this weekend, and this afternoon is going to his honeymoon. So he's literally like fitting this in. So thank you. Congratulations, you. Got an out of office reply from him that said getting hitched. It's like, wait, what? So JJ, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit more about what you do, and then also when we're thinking about the work environment, place, and with neurodivergent and neurotypical folks, what resources are available?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is JJ Sharp, and I'm with the Fishers Health Department here in Fishers. One of the great things that I get to do in my position, I do a lot of the community outreach and engagement. I do all the community outreach engagement. What am I saying? But we really focus on mental health. It's one of the initiatives that we are really able to spend time in. Being a city municipal health department and not in some of these bigger counties like Marion County, not that we don't have issues that other counties have or other cities are seeing, but they're not to the extent. So we are able to focus our time and energy and efforts into other areas, and mental health has been one of them that we have really, really focused on. So I'm going to back it up just a little bit about myself. So I always joke about being diagnosed, or this is my late onset adult ADHD, and more conversations I've had with my sister and my nieces is that I've always had ADHD, and I am not officially diagnosed. However, as a gift to myself today for my birthday, I am scheduling my appointment. My daughter has been diagnosed, my sister, my nieces. It's just so blaringly obvious. I would bet my life on it that I have ADHD. Some things that you spoke to, I'm probably the only Gen Xer up here, but I can specifically remember report cards, and this is when they wrote it down, and JJ's always turned around, social butterfly, doesn't stay in her seat, and these are things that my grades weren't as good as other kids, and I would be like, well, I studied for a test, I not necessarily did the homework, or I memorized flashcards, And I was always like, my parents would like, we're not mad. We're just really disappointed. We just want you to apply yourself more. And as an adult looking back at that, I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't apply myself more. I'm like, I was like all over the place, like squirrel. What's this? Like, is there music downstairs? Like hearing something in another room, like it's just reassuring also that you're like, oh my gosh, this is me. I can't help it. So in my life, I joke about it a lot just because, I mean, really, it's things are tougher. I've always said that I am the ideas person. I am not the implementer. Like I've got all kinds of great ideas, but somebody else needs to be tasked with doing it. I've procrastinated my entire life. However, I work very well under pressure and I can hyper focus in and get stuff done. And people know that if they give it to me, it's going to get done. If you give me a tight deadline, if you give me a long time, I'm going to wait till like the week of to really hammer down. But just in learning about ADHD, and again, growing up, we always talked about it was ADD. I'm like, well, I'm not hyper. And then I'm like, well, I do click. I can't keep my feet still. Sitting in a chair this whole time, I'm like, oh. So it's just a lot of self-realization and just to talk to people. And I, again, would think like with my friends or my best friend, we're working moms, we're working full time, we've got kids. I go to take the trash out. And then for some reason, in the garage for 30 minutes and I come back in and my husband's like, what are you doing? I had the leaf blower. I'm like cleaning out the garage. I come in and the dishwasher's open and the bottom rack's out and the cabinets are open. I'm like, I don't know. I have ADHD. Like, that's just, I'm like, when are you going to understand this? Now that like 2 weeks ago, I'm like, do you constantly have like a running dialogue in your head of things? And he's like, no. And I'm like, really? I'm like, just like stuff like, I got to do this. I need to do that. This is going on and talking to myself. And then you hear something and then you say it out loud too, just to make sure you're like, okay, I need to do this. He's like, no. And I'm like, wow. That must be nice. I'm like, I'm exhausted all the time. So mental health and ADHD, all of it is really important to me. And I think in all of our lives and what we've all experienced over the last few years with going through COVID and just the toll that it's taken on our mental health. That's why I'm so thankful to be able to work for a department that really puts mental health first. So what we did at the Fishers Health Department is in 2014, Stigma-Free Fishers was launched. And basically what it was, and I wasn't there at this time, the health department's only 4 years old and I've been there for 3 of the 4 years. But what it was basically like a pledge that we're gonna talk about mental health. And we're going to, we want to get rid of the stigma and we're going to acknowledge more mental health issues in our area and what are we going to do about it? So from what I understand, it kind of kicked off and they had a few goals. They hit those goals. They did like a pledge and people signed the pledge that they were going to talk about mental health. And then I think it just kind of was like, okay, we checked these boxes and it kind of went to the wayside a little bit, and then it was COVID. And then when we came back in, we were like, we have got to talk about mental health. We have got to be more proactive versus reactive. We've got to get upstream. We're seeing these numbers of anxiety, depression, just off the charts where people are really, really having problems dealing with life. So we relaunched Stigma-Free Fishers. So a year ago, May, which May is Mental Health Month, we kicked off Stigma-Free Fishers, and this is kind of what the original logo looked like. And what Stigma-Free Fishers, what we did is we invested in an online application tool, and it's powered by Credible Mind. So Credible Mind is the online application tool. And this is a free, totally confidential, science-based application tool where you can get online and you can do all sorts of mental health assessments. Do I have anxiety? Is this burnout? Is my loved one drinking too much? Because let's face it, with mental health, there's, like we said, with the ADHD, there's other things that go hand in hand with it. Like if you're suffering from ADHD, more than likely you have some anxiety or some depression, or you might be diagnosed with like bipolar, like you said. So all these mental health topics are in one place. It's a great resource. You can go in, you can learn by video, there's vlogs, there's all types of information. And when we kicked this off, we had we've had in just over a little over a year, over, I think, 12,000 unique individuals that have gone online and taken these assessments. It is confidential, so we cannot see who you are, but we can see like where you're hitting from. We can see that you're in Marion County, or we can see that you are in Kentucky, and we've had users from out of the country, all over, that are using these resources. So what we did is we put together, or myself and our intern, because there's not a lot of us, but this is a toolkit for business owners. What we were seeing and data that we were collecting is that with business owners, the most missed work, sick days, are related to mental health. 9 times out of 10, the highest number of sick days are really related to mental health. So we've put together this mental health toolkit, and I've brought them so you can all take them with you today. And it just gives you information based off of, this is off of Mental Health America. There's just a little, like a guide in here that helps you have conversations or identify like, Jane might be having some issues with anxiety, depression. We're seeing she's sick, she's out a lot, she seems to be like really not herself. They're just great resources in here. We have, out of that, we have this, so the Credible Mind QR code, there's a digital toolkit, so you can download all of this as well. And one other thing that came out of basically our quest or journey in trying to work upriver is we decided to launch a club hub. Now, the club hub is really a place for folks that are in clubs, but they don't have anywhere to meet. So what we did is we reached out to businesses in the Fishers area and said, hey, do you guys have a space that you wouldn't mind in your downtime or off hours that you would let people come in and have a book club or play Dungeons and Dragons or play euchre or whatever their club might be? And that way it also helps combat the isolation and loneliness that we've really been working on as well. So Club Hub is now its own application online that you can opt in. You can go online if you're in a club or you have a group or you want to start one, and you can see all the restaurants or businesses in the area that have options for you to have meetings or clubs for free. There's not minimum purchase. So that was just another thing that we started, and we did Club Day at the Fishers Farmers Market. We just had our second year where, again, it's just trying to combat isolation and loneliness with folks that are having mental health issues. This is a great tool, not just for businesses, but for individuals. If you don't want the whole toolkit, I also have just a one-sheeter, and it just tells you different things that you can look up and assessments that you can take. But I highly encourage everyone to scan the QR code. I've got stickers. Any questions that you have, please ask, but it is a wonderful tool, and we're really excited to have it, and we don't see it going away at any time. We've made the investment for 3 years up front, but we're just gonna keep on with it and keep working on mental health issues in our community.
Awesome, thank you so much. And what an incredible toolkit. That Club Hub is so awesome. So yeah, at the table back here, there are lots of those that you can grab after we're done. And then Ray, so as a coach, what are some tips for optimization of time and resources for individuals' daily life?
Yes, well, first and foremost, hello everyone. It's a blessing to be here with you this morning. My name is Raymond Ashiel. I do also go by Recovery Ray. You can ask me why a little bit later. So for just ways and strategies to optimize, I think it's been great that we've been talking a lot about awareness. And I think that's really where it starts. We can only take care of what we're aware of. So doing what we can to expand our awareness of how we're currently spending our time and energy, our current mental health status, right, allows us to be more strategic and intentional about the habits that we choose to integrate into our daily life. So one of the exercises that I take clients through and that I do myself, and this is a bit of a sidebar, I have not been diagnosed with ADHD, but after doing a deep dive into some of the symptoms and hearing a lot more today, I would say it's kind of like, reading a horoscope, like, that's me. So I probably have it too. And so I'm grateful for the work that I do because it helps me as well as other people. So one of the exercises that I start people with is really a time audit, right? So you go for 7 days and you keep track of how you spend every minute of the day, right? What am I doing from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed? And that really opens people's eyes because a lot of times when I talk about strategies to promote your mental health or your physical health, they say, hey, I don't have the time for it. But then when you really get granular and say, well, this is how I'm spending my time, then you realize, wait a minute, I was spending an hour and a half scrolling on my phone when I could have used this time to do some other activities that actually contribute to my health and my well-being. So that's where I encourage people to start, right? Do a time audit. It doesn't have to be a full day or a full week. You can take it in chunks. But something that someone else mentioned was just routine. And I think that's also something that's really important for people to begin to think about and to consider. And I call this a sustainable self-care system. It sounds a little bit more complicated than what it is. It's just a series of habits that you practice on a consistent basis to promote your optimal health and well-being. And I coach people to break it down into 3 different pillars, 3 different sections. One is an evening routine. So what am I doing towards the end of the day, typically the last hour of my day, to help me get the best quality sleep possible? If you're not getting quality sleep, it's only going to amplify the symptoms of ADHD or any other mental health condition that you may have. So it's really important to focus on getting quality sleep. The second pillar is your midday. And so what are you doing throughout the day to really bring your attention and awareness back to the present moment so that you can be more intentional about how you're spending your time? And so I encourage people to set gentle reminders in their phone. I call them mindful moment reminders. And for me, I had one go off as we were going through the panel, but like you all didn't hear, right? It was just a vibration. And during that time, I pause, I take a deep breath, I bring my attention back to what I value and what my goals are, and then I just proceed on with my day. So doing that throughout the day is really helpful because oftentimes, we go from one thought to the next, one task to the next, and there's no lines of demarcation that allow us to kind of rethink where we are, reevaluate, what we may need in the moment to promote our well-being. So that's the second pillar, that midday. And then the third is your morning routine. And I really encourage people to focus on integrating mindfulness into your morning so that you can be more present, more clear-minded, and really set an intention for the day, right? Be able to write down the different tasks that you need to accomplish. I live on to-do lists as well. So making sure in the morning I'm writing down, okay, these are the 3 most important tasks. I know I'm going to be working on other things throughout the day, but if I can get these 3 things done, I'm really making progress towards whatever goal that I have at that time. So that's the framework that I recommend and that I coach people through, how to integrate different behaviors into that day, right? That ideal day. And something else that someone mentioned, I think it was you, Neil, talking about grace. This is something that I integrate into all of the health education work that I do and coaching. I remind people that you don't have to be perfect to make progress. So it's really important to be patient with yourself and to be kind to yourself as you are integrating new habits into your routine and really seeking to optimize your health and your well-being.
Awesome. Thank you. So those are such incredible tips, and yeah, that's amazing. You have business cards and stuff over there as well, right?
Yeah, I have some kind of 5x7 flyers over there. Those really highlight the intention behind the business. So Balance Period is a health equity firm, and we're here to help close the racial health gap by empowering communities to create generational wellness. That is really just the healthy mindset and habits that you can pass down or exchange between one generation and another. And so that really breaks down what generational wellness is. And on the back, there's just some questions to help you create a family health history. That's really important along anyone's health transformation journey. You got to understand kind of historical data so that you can just be more, mindful of things that you may be at risk for that you need to take into account as you're seeking to optimize your health.
Awesome. And I love what you said about a mindful minute.
Mindful moment, yep.
A mindful moment. Taking that pause to take a deep breath because this noise is just really trying us all with ADHD up here. But as I've been in therapy the past year of working on this, one of the things we often talk about is that taking time to breathe, because I can get so worked up with all those thoughts that are in your busy head and all that stuff, and giving yourself pause to like let it all calm down, like regain control and all that. So thanks for all those tips. And then the last thing before we ask you guys for questions, so get those ready. But I want to turn it back over to Ashley for any advice for those who think that they may have ADHD.
So I cannot stress this enough, just staying up on your annual wellness visits with your physician, because things like thyroid disorders, iron deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, B12, B6 deficiencies, all those can be linked to anxiety and depression and so many things. So number one, always stay up on those visits and ask the labs that I just mentioned if you have any of the symptoms of anxiety, depression, ADHD, because it's all intertwined. Ask for those labs to be checked, because I swear they won't always just check them, but if you're your own advocate, you can get those checked. And that's a simple over-the-counter fix. So start there. Well, I guess actually start with the assessments that JJ recommended. You can start there for yourself. You don't have to go to the doctor for those. Start there, see your primary care physician, and sometimes they can manage some of those for you. They can start you with something like a non-stimulant like Strattera or Quellbri. And then, if things don't get better, maybe something else is going on. It would be really good to see a psychiatric mental health professional, such as a nurse practitioner, a psychiatrist, someone else that can do a little bit of a deeper dive. But also, I also can't recommend enough neuropsych testing. Just recently, I had someone that was diagnosed with ADHD, but just there was something else going on, and I could just tell. And I recommended the neuropsych testing, and come to find out they were bipolar. Had no idea. Right? Because they weren't, the typical bipolar, but they had a lot of the characteristics. They were on the wrong medication. And if you're on the wrong medication for any of these, disorders, it can really mess with your life. So knowing how to get the proper help, getting the proper resources. I don't know who does neuropsych testing around here. There's only one place where at West Lafayette, that does it. Sometimes insurance doesn't always cover it, but sometimes it does. So just to look into that, know your resources. You can recommend that to people that you know that might be facing these challenges. Indiana Health Group, I guess, is the place that does the neuropsych testing around here. And you can go to a mental health professional, like a nurse practitioner, but they don't always have they have the screenings, but they're not as in-depth. Like for children with ADHD, they get something called a Vanderbilt, which is something that goes to the teacher and it goes to the parents. And it's like a whole line of questions. But for adults, literally it's like 10 questions and they're diagnosed with it. And I'll be honest, I don't fully agree with that. So the neuropsych testing is just a way to know your cognitive function. If you think you might have some, memory issues or anxiety, depression, a mood disorder, it's just the best way really to get diagnosed properly.
And then I'll build off of that and say, as far as what testing looks like, for me, there was an initial assessment, an hour just kind of talking about like what your past was, like what kind of symptoms you may have had growing up, and then you come back later for a 4-hour test. It's like you bundle up, like it's going to be a big chunk of time, but it's also like, if you have AD, like some of the things are like fun, like you have to like move these blocks around without doing certain things. It's a fun time, but it's a.
I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to add this. It is a 4-hour-long test. So those with ADHD, and I don't think you're supposed to take your medication on those days, so they can thoroughly evaluate you. So if you're on Adderall or Vyvanse or something, you're not supposed to take it. So it's an accurate diagnosis. But just really quick, I did not hit on this yet. So ADHD is like a dopamine and norepinephrine. Like you don't have enough of that because the pathways just work differently in your brain. So there's natural ways to do that that are within your control, such as exercise, being outside in the sunshine, and things like drinking a lot of coffee are not the greatest. So just to think of things within your control that you are able to do. There's a whole, I'm sure, Ray can coach on those, but just focusing on the things you can do within your control, but no, there are things outside of your control.
All right, do we have any questions in the audience? We have about 10 or so minutes left. Would you like a mic?
So as a business owner who has deadline driven, like permits, everything, I'm in design and architecture creative, and I have several staff members who struggle with deadlines. So we're breaking all that down. What's your suggestions then to help them be successful, knowing the anxiety, the depression, the attention challenges. And any suggestions are welcome.
I would 100% recommend that you have them go on this stigma-free Fishers and take these online assessments. Not only are there it's not just the assessment and it's like, yeah, you might have a little ADHD or you might be a little depressed. The resources are all on there. There's so many resources. That is a great starting point, just because, like you said, there are specific deadlines, and that's a great tool for you to share with them. Also, I'm sorry. Fantastic. I love that. It is a great, thank you. It is a great tool. I really recommend that. Also, I think what was already brought up here on the panel before is just acknowledging, like, that's one of the best things, honestly, that I work with my coworkers and being stigma-free Fishers. I mean, we don't just preach it, we live it. And we literally, like, we're in cubicles, so you can imagine, like, oh, the noise. But, like, sorry, ADHD brain, like, we are all very open about, like, oh, like, this is going on, sorry. Is my music too loud? Or I need music, it's too quiet in here, like. But having that open dialogue, I think, helps a lot to just kind of break down that barrier where you are more understanding, like, hey, I get it. I understand that deadlines are hard for you, but here are some tools that we're gonna put in place to help you help yourself. Because I don't know about everyone else, but I think maybe with ADHD or maybe not, but we are hard on ourselves, and you don't ever want to disappoint anyone, and you don't want to disappoint yourself. Like I said earlier, like, I would have wished a million times that my parents would have just grounded me or said they were mad at me. But man, for somebody to say we're just disappointed in you, that cuts like a knife. So I don't know if that's a characteristic or maybe that's just my tender heart. But I hate to disappoint anyone. So I think having that dialogue with those folks and just really trying to give them some tools. I think this self-care book for people with ADHD is a really great start too, that you can give some folks some information on that. But really just understanding and acknowledging and just really trying to reinforce that behavior and healthy habits for them, I think, is best.
Are you guys in person? Also going on in my head is visual reminders. And I know I mentioned kindergarten earlier, but going back to, like, things that work for kindergartners, if there's, like, a star sheet, like, I'm at this deadline, I'm going to put a sticker up there. Like, I'm going to be, like, talking about ADHD runs on dopamine hits. Putting that sticker up there is going to be a dopamine hit. Oh, man, if stickers aren't working, I don't know.
That's fantastic.
Well, I would love to brainstorm with you later if that stuff isn't still working.
I'm not only a practitioner, I'm also teaching at the collegiate level. So I'm also seeing it play out in my college students. So even as we're trying to arm them with tools to prepare them for the workplace, I have students who are struggling. It's a huge, big deal. So trying to help them, I mean, and it's fresh on my heart because I literally just had that conversation with a student on Friday who is in that struggling place, and I sent him there. Whether he went there or not, I don't know. But so I'm seeing it not only as a practitioner who has staff, but I'm seeing it at a collegiate level, at a high school level, and a junior high level. So arming them with tools to get them so that they can break down the task, especially when you're creative.
Yeah.
I mean, because they are so creative.
You just mentioned breaking it down. So what if you gave them, like, smaller deadlines, like give them
I did.
dates for small?
I
Okay,
have.
so that's what you did. Exactly. Okay.
That was why I'm like, I got 6 more people to pick their brain.
Because the accountability normally helps, but goodness. And a lot of, I mentioned this with you, like the social media and people on their phones, while it's like a short-term dopamine, like, reward, it depletes us too. So when people spend all this time on their phones, they don't have, like, the energy to do the rest. So really putting that limit on your phone.
I love it.
You are doing everything right, it sounds like. Yeah.
I think if you're going to have reminders or help somebody remember to stay on task coming from a curiosity side of things rather than a why aren't you doing this? Be like, hey, how's this going? Or are you, did you get through this problem part? And just kind of helping also figure out the priority of the tasks. Like, that's a big thing for me. Like, I might know all the things I got to do, but getting it in the right order and figuring out which one's more important than, the small interesting thing that somehow I fall down the rabbit hole of 3 hours probably wasn't the thing I needed to work on today, but I already did. So just coming from a area of curiosity and coming alongside rather than you need to get this done is always helpful.
It sounds like you are doing a lot of really great things. I would say one thing since we said everybody uses notebooks and checklists so much, if you're not using it, I think Planner is fantastic. That's a great tool. And then the other thing too, I would just look at, and not that you are doing this, but maybe look at the workload. Is it too much? Or do we have too much on the folks? Do we need to hire someone else? Because that's also if people are constantly missing deadlines or they're drowning in their work, is it because they're just not getting their work done? Maybe it's ADHD, maybe they're just not spending their time correctly, or is it really a situation where there is too much work to go around and not enough folks? So that's always something I would recommend checking into, but I think we all live in that. There's not enough hours in the day for all the work that needs to be done.
All right, one last question.
Thank you all for your time today. I have a question that's probably going to push us over the time limit, but so I'm more on the hyper-focused. I've never been diagnosed, so half of you haven't been diagnosed either. My question is related to treatment and medicine. Is it required if you have ADHD, or can you speak to say we do an assessment and it says you have ADHD, can you speak to is medicine the answer, or is there other treatments that you can use related to diagnosis?
I personally started taking Vyvanse this year, and it really helped me focus. However, it gave me a little bit of anxiety. It actually made it worse. So I was like, okay, what does make me feel good? Exercising in the morning changes my life for the whole day. So it's just like getting that motivation to get up and do it. And if I do that, that has been better than medication and sticking to a routine for me personally. So right now, I'm just being pretty transparent. I take a Lexapro, and I've been on that for like 8 years, but I took that before I even knew I had ADHD. So now that I know that I'm aware, I can look into things that are in my control, and that's what really, really helps. Some days it's really, really hard, but I know if I do that, it's gonna help everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, building off that, definitely not required to be medicated. I kind of same journey. I used to be on Lexapro for a little bit, treating for like anxiety and depression, and then realizing ADHD, and I got on Adderall for a little bit, but Adderall did not work for me because another thing with ADHD can be like unintentional eating disorder slightly, like you forget to eat all the time. But with Adderall, you definitely need some stuff in your stomach. So it's like it gave me stomach aches and all this stuff all the time, so that wasn't for me. I did get prescribed another type of medication a few months ago. I haven't gotten that yet. So not required. There are a lot of different ones out there. There are a lot of people who swear by exercise and stuff. Like my sister-in-law, she thrives on Adderall. There's a lot of different ones out there, but it's mostly kind of a trial and error type thing because all of those are going to impact you differently. And I'll be honest, I have some anxieties about trying different medications because even though that your brain works differently, it's scary to try and course correct that because the good side is the creativity and all that. And it's like, I don't want to lose that. Like, what is that going to look and feel like? Yes, there are a lot of different avenues there.
Just to mention, if you did want to go the medication route, because some people end up having to go that route because they just don't have that motivation to exercise or get up, so they do need to start there, or it's an option that you should think about, maybe short term, until you can get back up there. But something to keep in mind is there's something available called gene site testing, and your mental health professional can do that for you typically, and it's a mouth swab, and it basically will tell you with your DNA what medication will work for you the best. There's green, yellow, red, do not use. And from what I've seen in practice, it's been very, very helpful. So just don't feel defeated, if things aren't working and you do need to start a medication, because I've also seen it change lives. Going that route, but looking at it from starting small, get your labs done, do that, and then look at things you can do within your control. Start there, and if it's still not getting better, then a medication might help a lot.
I will second the gene site testing.
Gene site.
Personally, my niece was having a lot of issues with anxiety and depression. They thought that she had something that was related to hormonal, where she would just plummet. They had her on different types of medication trying to level out the depression and anxiety. She ended up doing the gene site testing, and all the medication that they were trying out for her was incorrect. She actually ended up having bipolar 2 and ADHD off the charts. So she was diagnosed her freshman year in college, which during COVID, which is a really hard time, but it was life-changing for her. She was but also a little bit of oh my gosh, who am I? I don't really know who I am with medication. This is so different. But the gene site testing, my mother had that done because she has anxiety and depression, and they had her on medication that didn't work. And so when I took my daughter to get tested for ADHD, she's also battled with anxiety and depression, because all of this is genetics. Thanks, Mom and Dad. We get it from somebody else. If one of your family members has it, then there's a pretty good chance someone else does. I'm not clinical, but this is from my personal experience. I had my daughter tested as well. So we didn't go down that rabbit hole of, she just graduated high school, so we were doing this during her senior year, and I didn't want to try all these medications. Let's give this 4 weeks. Let's give this 6 months and see how it is. I just said, let's do the gene site testing and make sure what she's taking. She was all green, so everything they were was great. But yes, she was diagnosed with the ADHD as well. But what they found out is, because she was already on Wellbutrin for her depression, that it was also helping boost the ADHD. So she didn't need to get on any medication for the ADHD, because just that little bit of Wellbutrin was giving her the boost that she needed. So, but I think exercise is great. Although ADHD, I get up in the morning and find the routine is not there for me. So
Awesome. Not to cut you guys off, we're about 5 minutes over, and I know a lot of people have a lot of things to do today. I just wanted to give everyone on our panel a big round of applause. Thank you guys so much. Our panelists probably will hang out for a little bit, so if any of you have any more questions, you want to connect with them, on the back side of the sheet that we put out for you, there is the email address and website for all of our panelists, so you can reach out to them, you can connect with them. They also have resources and things over on these side tables, but thank you guys so much.
Thank you.